Welcome to Stars Podcast. Through self-defense, mixed martial arts, nutrition, family, and all things in between, we share our journey of how we hack our mind and body to get the maximum return out of each day. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the journey. Welcome back to Stars Podcast, your growth mindset mecca. This is your host, Ron Jordan, coming at you from Rocinante Studios in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. This episode is brought to you by Valor Personal Defense Group. Self-defense is a perishable skill. Only through continuous and consistent training will one be able to effectively employ a skill set that they have learned. Valor Personal Defense Group system is designed to offer constant, consistent, and affordable training to all individuals wanting to learn and stay sharp. We keep our firearms courses affordable to facilitate our continuous training philosophy. Now listeners of Stars Podcast get 15% off firearms courses with coupon code STARS21, which can be booked at valorcombatacademy.com. Hey guys, welcome back. Stars Podcast here. This is your host, Ron Jordan, coming at you out of Rocinante Studios in Slippery Rock, PA. Today we have a special guest with us. His name is Mohit Madaan. I probably butchered the name, but we're going to call him Mo today because that's going to be easier for me if it's good with him. He is the CTO for Biterminal. He is a social media marketing manager and agency, and you can find him over on Instagram, also on Twitter, and seems like you are part of a poker game, also founder CEO of Biterminal Crypto ATM company, which is what I'd really like to talk about today, is the crypto world and the crypto ATMs that you have, as well as your journey up to and into the crypto market. So welcome to the show, Mo.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ron. Excited to be here.
Yeah.
On the poker thing, if you go to my Clubhouse bio, it specifically says I'm a poker fish. And that terminology basically means somebody who constantly loses at poker. So after playing for about 12 hours, I've made it official. I'm not going to try. I officially am a fish. I lose money, but I play for fun. And I've admitted. Yeah. So other than that, super excited to talk about the Biterminal journey, crypto. 90% of my time, other than the family and fun stuff, goes into running Biterminal. I currently have been managing that full time. Excited to talk about that, answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, so the first question I have is, where did the idea come from to get into the Bitcoin ATM
Yeah,
market?
interesting. Yeah, so I was actually in California visiting for another business of mine. I used to run a home security alarm company, and I was at a gas station and I saw a Bitcoin ATM in Fresno, which is a small town in Central California, and I couldn't believe the ATM was charging 25%, and there were three guys waiting in line to use that. How do you not want to be in that business? I have been running businesses for 12 years, and I was like, I want to be on the other side of the fence. And this was 2017 December, which was actually time when it was still easy for companies to start. The laws and regulations have changed a lot in United States, which has made a little more difficult for companies to get in. But yeah, that's where the idea came from. I found this gentleman in Colorado that had a couple of old machines. He didn't want to run that business. And I bought those and, made some mistakes and learned, and we've been growing ever since.
Yeah, so those early days of implementation. Now, you said that you were visiting California, but a lot of your.
Right.
So let me ask you: Are you currently in the USA?
I am, yes.
Okay, and then your business is in the USA, and
It's
from what I looked at, a lot of the Bitcoin ATMs, the majority are in the United States or Canada, so North
correct.
America. Those
Correct.
early days, what was it like trying to get one of them installed somewhere?
Um, the biggest challenge we faced back in the days was this was December 2017. If you remember, that's when the bull market was happening. Bitcoin went from 4,000 in October to 20,000 in December. and everybody wanted to be in that business. So the biggest challenge for us was getting these machines. I still remember there were people that were actually flipping them, believe it or not. So they would buy a machine from a manufacturer and at a markup of $1,000 and sell them, because if you went directly to manufacturer, which is General Bytes, it would cost you about 3 months of waiting period. That was the biggest challenge. And we also had to face a lot of resistance from store owners because they just didn't like the word Bitcoin. So they just didn't even want to know more because Bitcoin is associated somehow with bad press at the time. It's still there a little bit, but a lot has changed since then. But I'd say those two things were like the big challenges trying to get the machines installed in the stores.
So supply chain on the early side was definitely a bottleneck.
Definitely, 100%. If you wanted to start, let's say, a company and put in 20 machines, it was almost impossible. You couldn't even find a manufacturer that had that many available because everybody wanted to be in that business.
Mm-hmm. And you said General Bytes is the company for that
General
now?
Bytes is the manufacturer. They're out of Europe. They actually are the largest company in the industry. I think recently they installed their 3,000th or 4,000th machine worldwide. And they're not only the largest, they're also actually pretty good from what we have seen. The support team is amazing. The machines are pretty good. We're super happy with them so far.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot more of the Bitcoin ATMs. Coinstar has them now as well,
Right.
where you can go in
Right.
and sort of dump all the change instead of getting fiat. You can
Right.
get cryptocurrency.
Well, I do wanna highlight the difference between Coinstar and a typical Bitcoin ATM company like ours. When you go to Coinstar, you can dump all the change and you get what's called a cryptocurrency receipt, and you still have to go to another place to cash it. With something like our company, you actually give in the cash and you get cryptocurrency right away. Or let's say if you wanted to sell your Bitcoin from our machines, you can literally send $2,000 worth of Bitcoin and the cash will come out. It will not be like a voucher that you now take to Walmart. So that's a little bit of difference that I think a lot of people don't understand. If you are stuck in a situation where you need cash right now and you lost your debit card, Bitcoin comes in very handy. For our company and for majority of the companies, the fee on the sell sides are very, very low. So it's almost negligible. If you need $100, your debit card will actually end up costing you more because most of these non-bank ATMs have $3, $4, $5 in transaction fee. And Bitcoin ATMs usually are in the 1-2% range when it comes to selling your crypto.
Interesting. I didn't know that the rates were so low to use the ATM itself.
Yes, to sell your crypto rates are low. Now to buy, it's a different story, but they're getting very, very good. I was recently in Austria, and Austria is one country in Europe that has accepted cryptocurrency ATMs in a very large scale. And Austria rates are actually already down to 3 to 4%. And in the United States, we are actually seeing single digit rates. Our company is in the 7% range, but there's a couple of companies out there that I've seen offering 5.99% or 6.25%. My prediction is in the next 24 to 36 months, it will settle down to 3 to 4% range. And I think that's where it'll stop, because that's when it'll become a game of, well, you cannot be profitable with anything below that. And, that's going to be the market.
Okay. Let me ask you then, you gave your prediction as far as the percentages go. Where is your prediction going on the amount of ATMs that we'll start to see more readily available in across the world? Because I see them quite a bit. You can just do a Google search and look for crypto ATMs around me, and you see quite a few options.
Well, there's
Where do you see
two
that?
different things. If we look at United States, that's a whole different story compared to rest of the world. For example, I am from India. I was born and raised here, and I still have business and real estate back in India. Now, In India, there was one ATM ever installed, and that guy was arrested and thrown in jail for, I think, a week. This was, I think, in 2018. Now, when the country does that, you're basically shutting down that industry for 1.4 billion people. And there are, I think, similar instances of that happening in other countries. I visit other countries in Gulf area, and there's same situation. You will be thrown to jail if you ever thought about installing a Bitcoin ATM. So worldwide, I'm not going to make any prediction. I will stick to countries that are actually embracing the technology. We recently looked at getting our license for Australia, and it's quite a process. But countries that have actually welcomed the industry is where my interest is: U.S., Canada, UK, Australia, and a couple of European countries. And I think for United States, we will see them anywhere in the city within walking distance. So right now, we still have to do a Google search where sometime it's 10 minutes away. But I think in the next couple of years, we'll see them at every street corner. It might not get to a point where it's as prevalent as the standard ATM machine, because that's a very mature industry for decades now, where store owners nowadays have figured out it costs them $2,500 to get a used ATM, and they don't need to be licensed, separately for that. It might not get to that point, but I will I can totally see Bitcoin ATMs at every street corner in the next 3 to 5 years in the United States.
And what do you attribute that bullish remark to? Is it just the adoption, or is it something that maybe some folks aren't even looking at as a catalyst for that?
Well, I think a lot of people look at the ATMs and don't realize how easy they are to use. I mean, right now, if you and I want to do $20 worth of Bitcoin trade, and we don't have, Binance or Bitstamp or Gemini account, it's kind of hard, right? I mean, they put your funds on hold for a week. I mean, do we really expect consumers to wait a week to buy $20 worth of Bitcoin? Bitcoin ATM solves that problem in a very good manner. This is literally going to an ATM, putting cash in, getting your Bitcoin in less than 3 minutes. And that's fully compliant with all the laws and regulation that the exchanges are following. It's just that ATM doesn't have to worry about a chargeback because the customer did put in physical cash. I think the convenience is super underrated. That's why I think we haven't seen any big player come in and start, putting 5,000 ATMs at once. Another factor I think a lot of people are ignoring or not getting it is that this serves a community that cannot use other means. People that are underbanked or people that are unbanked. How do you buy Bitcoin if you don't have a bank account? And not having a bank account is not necessarily, because you are illegally in America. It could be as simple as you had a felony 20 years ago and the bank still don't give you an account. So that certain group of people actually have this great option where they made $1,000. Unfortunately, they get paid in cash and they cannot get banking system to accept them, so they can buy Bitcoin with this method. Third group of people that we see that are starting to use this is for the remittances. I personally talked to one of our client that was doing a transaction at our ATM around 11 o'clock in the night, and it was such a fascinating conversation I had. I was taking a customer service call where the customer said, I'm trying to send money to Mexico. My mom is at the doctor's and she needs the money right now. And they found out that somebody there could take Bitcoin and give them cash right now. They're like, there is absolutely nothing that's open right now other than this. So now imagine if somebody is, trying to send a remittance, it could literally all be done within 5 minutes, where you buy Bitcoin in United States and your parents, family, friend in a country can go to another Bitcoin ATM, sell, and have physical cash. They don't have to worry about the exchange rate because this is all real time. When you're at the ATM, you can check the ATM is pulling the rates from an exchange and not just making it up, right? The fee is there, and it just serves a huge purpose that our community needs.
And that is one thing that I wanted to dig in on was the remittance industry, because that is a multi-billion-dollar industry for the big banks.
Correct.
And I'm sure that regulations are surrounding that. Are you seeing anything on the regulatory side that would preclude you from having more Bitcoin ATMs in the United States or for remittance
Well,
purposes?
each state is different. I mean, the way United States work is states have more power than the federal government in a lot of senses. That's one reason why we see very little to no ATMs in Connecticut, and we see tons of ATMs in California, right? So in order to do business in Connecticut, it's a whole different story than, let's say, to do business in Vegas or California. I think the regulation here in the United States has matured enough that we will not see a big setback. We might see changes. We might see that it's getting slightly more difficult because now there is more compliance involved. But I think it's matured to a point where it will continue to grow. We, as a Bitcoin ATM company, are regulated by the exact same laws that a bank is regulated by. So we file a suspicious activity report if somebody goes to an ATM and does $9,900 transaction with an ID, because we know they're trying to, you know, do under 10K because they know that we are supposed to report every transaction over 10K. So it's the exact same laws that the bank follow. It's just a new industry. I think the banks will have to adjust to this.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were under the same regulations as banks are.
Well, to run a crypto ATM company, you are what's called a money service business. You are regulated by FinCEN, which is a federal body, and then you have your state money servicing business licenses, and that's essentially what the banks do as well. We are filing suspicious activity reports every single day, and that's exactly what the banks do without telling the customer. Your compliance team thinks it's suspicious, you're supposed to report it to FinCEN, and that's exactly what the banking industry does as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's a common myth that people think you can go to an ATM, buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, I use a burner phone, and nobody's gonna know. It's not that simple. The tools are so good, the compliance is so good. The government doesn't care about a $20 transaction, but if you're doing anything serious, if you're using any serious amount of money, it's getting properly tracked by our compliance team within our company, and then the government, the entire department, the whole thing. It's just a convenience. The ATMs are not like an easy way of laundering money like a lot of people think it is.
Well, that was going to be my next question, actually, was about money laundering and bad actors, but it seems like there are processes set in place that are going to
Yeah,
sniff those
it's
out.
not that simple. A, it's not that simple. B, I mean, here's a good example. If you visit one of our ATMs and you try to buy Bitcoin, and let's say a $20 transaction, which we know is not suspicious in any sense, and if you use one of the addresses that's on the OFAC list or that's associated with, let's say, gambling industry, and your state doesn't allow that, the ATM will not even take your money. It will just say, invalid wallet address. And I have had questions like how hard it is to spin up a new address in your wallet. It's not, but what you don't understand is the forensic tools nowadays already know that this is also your address, and it connects pretty well. So it's not that simple. You cannot just show up to an ATM and do a transaction if you have bad intentions.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. And the fact that somebody would think that you can outsmart a system that is built off of computer technology.
Right.
And
Yeah.
to think, the audacity to think that you can outsmart that just by creating a new wallet address is
It's funny. People think that Bitcoin is this mythical thing where everything is hidden. It's the opposite of that, right?
it's
Like
so transparent.
Bitcoin is so transparent. we actually use a tool which is a forensic tool, and that gives us information on an address up to 40 hops. What I mean by that is if I enter an address right now in that tool, it will tell me what happened to that address 40 hops ago, meaning this
Oh,
address got Bitcoin from one address and that got from one address. And we can go back 40 transactions to track that. I mean, that's a lot of forensic, and that's one click. And
yeah.
if we dig deeper, we can basically go infinity until that coin was mined. So during the whole, from the time the coin got mined, let's say in 2015 till it got to your wallet today, we can see on the way if ever touched any bad actors. And we can actually ask them, like, do you know what happened? Now, if it's 20 hops ago, obviously you're going to have no idea.
Sure.
But if you got those Bitcoin in your wallet and that came from a bad actor, and you go to an ATM to sell it, there's going to be, questions. You cannot just go to ATM and
Sure.
sell it and take the cash out. It's not that simple.
Let me ask you this. I've watched enough CSI shows to know that it's part of tracking the bad guy or tracking the people who are abducting others, and sometimes they'll ask them to withdraw cash from the ATM so they can go about their business. Have you had any stories where your ATM was used to for an investigation that ended up turning out to be a good thing for the person?
Well, I don't think I can recall of one. What I do remember seeing few months ago was people got into trouble because they were sent to an ATM to do a transaction. So, victims of scam. And that was happening a lot last year. And it's gotten a lot better now where we barely see anybody. And I think that has a lot to do with scammers and bad actors are always going to use the newest thing because they adopt faster than the mainstream general population. But to answer your question, I can't think of a good example there.
Yeah, no, that does shed light onto what I was getting at. Um, and I like that you're able to see. And I was just talking about this with somebody else. Was the ability to see wallets in the crypto world has been so eye-opening for me as a new adopter of cryptocurrency. The fact that you can visibly see what's happening in wallets that you really don't have any business looking into, for that matter,
Yeah,
but you can
and
see it. You
you can see
can.
a lot more than just Bitcoin came from this address to this address. Like
Mhm.
that's the part. Like I wish, I could just give you my entire, secret sauce and tell you like these three things will like give you 100 times more information than just going to Blockchain Explorer. But it's a lot more in depth. These companies have 10 years worth of data where they've been collecting addresses of bad actors and wallets and whatnot, IP addresses and all of that. And it's just become so simple now where most of the things are 2 clicks. Like once in a while we get an email from let's say a detective in LAPD, and they'll send an email saying Bitcoin ATM transaction was done for $40 on your ATM. Customer didn't intend to send it. They felt they got scammed. We want to know more. Now, 4 years ago, all you could do was provide the officer with the transaction hash and address, which they most likely already have, and pretty much it, right? Like you don't have much to share. But now there's a lot we can share with them. Like we think this address sent the fund to this address, which ended up landing here, which actually is associated with this entity. So, here's more information that they might not readily be able to find it, but with the forensic tools, we can easily make that available.
Now, on the forensic tools side, are you actively engaged in any research and development with those
No.
forensic tools?
So
Are
no,
you not
we
allowed to be?
actually, well, we are. I just don't think I'm smart enough to build those or be part of a company that can build those. We purchase them on subscription basis where we pay a monthly fee to use these tools. And these companies have done such a great job that trying to build a business to compete them would be, I don't want to say foolish, but it will take very, very long time to get close to what they've already built.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to focus on what we're really doing and what we're good at.
And where do you have focus right now with your business?
Mostly California. So most of our machines are in the Bay Area and a few in Los Angeles market. We recently acquired a small company out of Ohio, and we are looking into expanding into that state. But primarily, we are focused on entire state of California, all the way from the border to 50 miles north of San Francisco.
Ohio. So you're in California and then you come to the Midwest in Ohio. What drew you to
Right.
Ohio?
I just got a company that was a good deal. The owners wanted to get out, and I looked at it and I couldn't pass. It was a small company. They have 6 ATMs up and running operational, and we just bought the company out.
And then you plan to expand more than 6 ATMs in Ohio, I assume?
Correct. So what happens is when you start a state, you have a lot of state regulation you have to follow, right? You cannot get away by not following the state regulation just because you have a couple of ATMs. One ATM or 1,000, you have to be getting yourself MSB licensing in that state. So since we touched Ohio to buy this company, we've done all this, time, effort, energy to get ourselves in compliance with the state, and the goal is to stick to these states and grow.
Makes total sense, and it's my neighboring state, so I'm intrigued. I'm over in Pennsylvania, and I
Cool.
do a lot of work in Ohio, so I'm curious. What city in Ohio are they based out of?
So they're based out of Akron, and
Oh, okay.
machines we have right now is between Cleveland and Akron area. I've visited Ohio only a couple of times. I'm not very familiar with the whole area, but
Mhm.
primarily between Akron and Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Akron, Cleveland, all that area. So,
Cool.
Akron's actually where LeBron James is from,
Right.
if you didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, so coming off of the bit terminal and the business side of things, are you invested in crypto in general? Are you looking at any other investment opportunities inside of the crypto world?
Well, I am invested in crypto. I think it's a great investment. I don't believe it's going to continue to go 200% a year like people like to think. That would mean my 5-year-old is going to be 20 feet tall when he's like 15, right? Like it doesn't work like that. Past performance is not an indication of the future. I still think it's a great investment. I try to stay away from a lot of what's called altcoin or shit coins. 2 reasons. One, I think there's so many, right? So you have to be very, very good at doing your research to find the winners. B, I think most of them are not going to be winners. I think there's a lot of bad actors that actually, have a coin because they know it's quick money. It was, ICOs. I actually just looked at this the other day. I was doing a little bit of research where if you look at top 100 cryptos in 2017, 70% of them are not in the top 100 anymore. That's 70%. That's a big number.
That
And I
is.
think I think 25% of them are not in the top 1,000 either. So that's how fast things change. What makes us think the top 100 right now are going to stay there? I personally don't think that will happen. Now, within the crypto space, I've recently started diving into NFTs. That is my new bedtime study material these days. I still don't fully get it, but I can see a use case for NFTs in the near future. And I think we discussed pre-hand a little bit on the project VFriends by Gary Vaynerchuk.
Mhm.
I have invested a little bit into that, and I'm looking into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something too that I've also. I mean, obviously, we had a conversation. We talked about that. The NFT space is very interesting, and it reminds me a lot of the early, um, the early crypto space, where there are a
Correct.
lot of actors, and maybe the top 100, 10 end up being there at the end of once everything shakes out. So
Right.
what is your take on the NFT space, and why do you think it's going to be why are you banking on that being a play here in the near term and maybe long term?
Well, we've never had an opportunity to invest really into an individual or, a band or a small little piece of art that was created by a nobody, right? Like it was always, well, either you have $10 million and you buy this one big thing, or you go find that one artist that lives somewhere. I mean, it goes back to the fact that internet is going to make this world such a beautiful place, but NFT is just going to 10x that. That's how I look at it. Like, right now, all these new artists coming up, they can launch their NFTs, and we can sit here on our computers and make little bets, a dollar here and there into new rap music that we like and we think is going to be a big deal. We never had that, and that's a real thing. And for a lot of people that don't understand NFT, they're like, well, but it's all fake. I'm like, no, this is real. you know a Mona Lisa that somebody buy for a few 100 million, that could be fake because you have no way of checking it. NFTs are under a smart contract where you can just 2 clicks and you can verify everything. So this is more real than and that's what kind of excites me. Like, this is a true opportunity for artists and people that want to do something to connect it with the audience directly and actually monetize on top of that.
Yeah, and you bring up a really great point, is that community piece of it, and having skin in the game is a big portion
Right.
of being invested into a community, whether it's big or small investment. Um,
It
it,
doesn't matter.
it
That's
doesn't
that's
matter.
irrelevant.
And I
Yeah.
think that's really the mind space of the creation of a community. Like, that's just sort of who we are as a species. We like that. We like the connection, and having the internet as that vehicle has allowed us to have connection with the world. And I think we're starting to wrap our minds around the impact that they can
Right.
have. But it's also a growing trend that I'm seeing, because
Right.
with cryptocurrency, decentralization, distributed networks, we're talking Web 0.0, distributed networks. People are tired of getting their stuff stolen, first off, like their
Right.
identity stolen, and all of those things. And I'm not saying that it can't happen in the blockchain. I just,
Right.
from what I know about the blockchain, is it seems like it's a lot more difficult to do that.
Correct.
And secondly, like, there's no, like, the hidden fees of a bank. There's no hidden
Right.
fees. It's just, this is the fee, and then you can see it at the end of the transaction what happened. There's just so
Right.
much transparency, and I think the world has been yearning for that
And I
transparency.
still believe we live in this world where wire transfer take 3 days if you do it on a Friday. Like, to me, that's laughable. Like, what happens? Like, Saturday, Sunday, you cannot do a wire. We live on the world where our cell phone is a supercomputer, and we can't send $20,000 to a different country to my own account. Like, so that needs to be changed, right? And cryptocurrency solved that. And you touch a very good point. There's fee, but then even with the fee, it's so inconvenient. Like, the banks literally make you call them and tell them, look, hey, today I'm going to be in Austria. If you see a debit card transaction, please don't decline. That's ancient technology to me. Like, I don't think that's a foolproof system. I think it's a workaround where a lot of people don't realize that, because a lot of people don't travel. They go to the same place every day. They live in their town. They use their debit card. Life's good, right? For somebody like me, I think 75% of my online transactions get denied. I get a text message and say reply with a yes. And sometime, because of international roaming, I don't get that. Then I get a call from my bank saying, we just want to verify that you're the one doing it. I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, you said you were going to be there for 20 days. So sorry, Mr. Bank, change of plan. I didn't know I had to. I think that's ancient technology. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that we still cannot go to our online account, do a $40,000 wire on Saturday night. Like, that makes zero sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and crypto solves that. It solves beautifully. Like, let's not even go into everything else, crypto as a store of value or great investment. Just that is a beautiful thing that crypto solves right now.
How do we get around the idea that it takes fiat to have crypto?
Well, what I try to do and I tell people to do is you can always just start accepting crypto as means of payment for your product and services. Like, that's a very real thing. My wife run a very successful YouTube channel, and for everything she does, her editors, script writers, animators, she makes a point of paying them in Bitcoin, and she gives them 5% more if you accept Bitcoin. That does a lot of things. One,
Mm.
that brings in adoption. These are people that are making, $25 for a little project, and now they got 26 and a quarter because they accepted Bitcoin. And now they don't have to worry about going to a bank and use a debit card and withdraw their cash. As long as they can educate themselves that you can actually spend these Bitcoin to do things, I think we will slowly get to a point where we will stop worrying about exchange rates. We will stop worrying about, oh, I got Bitcoin for my work yesterday and now it's down. Like, that's the mindset a lot of people have. I got past that a couple of years ago, where if you sell me Bitcoin right now, and once our trade is done, I do not have to look at the rate, because I know one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. Everything else,
Mm-hmm.
price in USD terms going up and down is irrelevant. And I get it. If you get paid $3,000 a month and you get paid in, crypto, and by the time you get home, it's 2,500 worth, I get it. That's a challenge. But I think if we start paying and accepting Bitcoin and other cryptos for services and goods, that will make this a very real thing. And we will not have to rely on fiat or the exchange or conversion back to fiat.
And there is a finite number of Bitcoin also, correct?
That is correct.
Now, with the finite amount of Bitcoin, and let's say that at some point a few actors end up having the majority of the Bitcoins.
Right.
I mean, it's similar to that of fiat. So how do you maintain stability in the actual worth of those?
Rich people are going to do what they have to do to get richer, right? Bitcoin doesn't solve that problem. If you go look at Manhattan real estate, very few people own 99% of it, right? Like, rich people are always going to have majority of the wealth. And that is not a problem that Bitcoin claims to solve. And I don't really see that as a problem. So out of 21 million Bitcoin, let's say 20 million were controlled by a very small amount of people. The other 1 million are there for us to use. Now, people can make a case that it becomes easy for them to manipulate. My question is, who are them? Like, who are they? Is it a group of 100 individuals that sit together and buy Bitcoin together? We know that's not the case, right? As price of Bitcoin goes higher, we are also seeing those days when Bitcoin would drop 25% in an hour. They are actually a lot less and far in between compared to what used to happen, let's say in 2015, 2014.
Mhm.
So I think as the market matured, that problem goes away. But one thing that people need to understand is the 21 million supply of Bitcoin is highly divisible. 1 Bitcoin has what's called 100 million Satoshis. So you don't necessarily have to trade into a full Bitcoin. You don't have to worry about, oh, well, there's only 21 million, not even enough for the entire world to get one each. Pretty soon we will be talking in Satoshis if Bitcoin, let's say cross a couple of 100,000 per Bitcoin. So that's something that I think a lot of people need to
That's
learn
actually a
and understand.
really curious, that makes like spurred my brain a little bit here, is because if you try to, let's say, create a business and you're
Right,
trying to buy raw goods and create some sort of widget, name it what you want to.
right,
In order to do that, you have to have some sort of stability in whatever currency you're using.
correct,
So what you're saying in Satoshis makes more sense to me, because
right,
it's a smaller portion of that larger, um,
right.
and being able to use it in Satoshi versus the full Bitcoin does make a lot of sense to me. However, well, not however, but it would be less volatile in the Satoshi portion
Of
than it
course,
is
yeah.
in the full Bitcoin,
I
because
mean,
it's a smaller percentage of the whole.
a thousand satoshis, a week ago was 30 cents, and it's still 30 cents or 29 cents, right?
Despite the
Like,
market shifting
yeah,
point.
it's
That's what I
right.
mean,
We
like the
look at
stability
we
there.
look at the headline and we go, oh, Bitcoin went from 64,000 to 38,000 in a month. But what we don't realize is people that are running the business, they don't have 3 Bitcoin, which is $180,000 worth of cash they just got. That didn't got cut into half, right?
Mhm.
It's an everyday thing where the volatility is actually very low if you look at it that way. Yeah, you're 100% right on that.
So you think near term we see more adoption in the near term, just
100%.
in the places that have already adopted, and across the world we're going to see it sparingly, but the places that have already adopted is where I want to focus on. Um, and in those locations, we see more acceptance as payment for goods also.
Right, right.
And when do you see a conversion from fiat, if ever? What needs to fall in place? I don't need it like a year frame, but like what do
Right.
you think the steps need to be for that to fall into place, for that conversion to sort of, fiat is on the crypto level and then crypto is on the fiat level, or ever?
Well, I think we are a long time away from getting to a point where we don't need to convert. That's something a lot of Bitcoin maximalists like to think is going to happen, where everything is Bitcoin. I don't think that's going to happen in the near future. I think there's always going to be conversion going back and forth because the real world still operates on fiat, right? You cannot go buy a car with Bitcoin. You could buy a Tesla for a few weeks, but that's gone too, right? Now, that will continue to be the case. But what I'm seeing is more, and I'll give you an example. We have a store owner where we installed a Bitcoin ATM. And a couple of months ago, they called us and said, we would like to get paid our rent in Bitcoin because that's a way for us to invest in Bitcoin and we don't need it to be converted to fiat. We don't care what the rate of Bitcoin is on that day. Just send us our rent in Bitcoin and we will never have to worry about it. That's one little thing that for that individual where he's understood that Bitcoin is not that volatile, that I need to get my rent in cash and then, well, by cash I mean in fiat, and then
Sure.
convert it to Bitcoin, right? Like, so I think we'll see a lot of those little things. I already have bunch of friends that are on Lightning Network with me on Telegram, where we send each other small portions of money, like split our bills in Satoshis,
Hmm.
and none of them ever cash out. So like, if you and I went out for dinner and let's say check is $100 because we're in Pennsylvania, and we split that, and I will send you $50 worth of Satoshis in a text message. It's as simple as send
Hmm.
Ron 50,000 Satoshis. That's it. There's absolutely nothing, there's no command line on top of that. And you wouldn't necessarily convert it to fiat and then cash it out to your bank account. So I think we're seeing that already. It's just that it's happening at a level where you have to have one person in your group to understand it, to educate others, right? Like
Yes.
that's what I'm seeing. Like if you have that one friend that gets it, usually others will adopt, right? And I think the transition needs to be made from that point to where we are actually doing that with strangers because we know, even though we don't trust each other, we can trust the blockchain, and we know once we get the satoshis, it's ours, right? So it's going to be a slow grind. As much as people like to think that things happen overnight, they don't. And I'm in for a long game. People ask me, when will you sell your Bitcoin? I'm like, not for next 20 years. I just don't see the point. It's just going to keep going up, as long as you hold it. And that's where a lot of people get disappointed, because they want it to get rich next year and not in 20 years, right? So I think it's going to be a slow grind, but every day, every year that passes, Bitcoin proves that it's very stable. It does exactly what it claims to do, and it's just a beautiful thing.
And what does Bitcoin do that the other coins don't?
It's a great store of value. Most of the cryptos out there, they usually have an uncapped supply, including Ethereum, where you don't know what's going to happen next year. With Bitcoin, everything is in set in place, meaning there's X amount of Bitcoin. It takes X amount of power to mine them. So you can't just magically go acquire all the Bitcoins. And it's an absolutely brilliant store of value, right? Like, where do you store your value? Fiat, they're printing it left and right like crazy. You don't want to do that. It's like people are like, well, I don't care if they print fiat because my dollar is still a dollar. It's not. It's like, think of it this way. If in the entire country there were only 10 apples and you had one of them, and all of a sudden every individual in the world has an apple, is your apple still that one same apple, or is it worth a lot less?
Yeah,
it's
certainly
it's
worth a lot less.
obvious, right? Like, now everybody has it, nobody cares. And that's the thing, same with dollar. You have the same amount of dollar, but there's so much more dollar outside of your little bubble that your dollars are worth less. And that's the part that Bitcoin solves. It's never gonna grow in the number of Bitcoin that are already there, and it will always remain that way.
That's fascinating to me. It is
Yeah,
fascinating.
it's it's internet, and then cryptocurrencies like blockchain. That's how I look at it. There's nothing in between. you know I was super excited when I got the first message on a Yahoo Messenger back in 2003 4. That was exciting, but there was like nothing. There's nothing like blockchain, where now we have this real thing which can change lives, which is changing lives right now every day. And that solves the biggest problem, which is the financial system. Regulators can try to knock it down. They will. They gotta do what they have to do. But it's like, you cannot kill a revolution like that, right? Like, it's not just a technology. It's millions of people understanding this is a true store of value. This is a true thing you can use. Like, we still don't know one thing where we could exchange with each other without trusting the third party, except gold. But then, gold has problems, right?
Well, it's physical too. So you actually have
Exactly.
to
How do
exchange
you,
that physically. That's why I think that the
it's how do
cryptocurrency.
you, like, I personally, I'm from India, and Indians love gold. It's a big thing when it comes to like wedding and gifts and jewelry. I still couldn't tell you if you give me a fake gold bar. I'm not that good at like judging if I can cut it in half and see what's inside of it. Like, that's a real problem, right? Like, that's why we don't exchange gold with each other, right? Like,
True. That's true.
with cryptocurrencies, it's one little click, and that's it, and you can verify that, right? Like, how awesome is that?
And that's what I love about the crypto world, the NFT world. You can you can actually verify what's happening
It's
if you
black and white.
understand how to use a computer. And I'm not saying like use a computer to program it. I'm just saying use a computer, turn it on and
Yeah,
do some clicking
using, if you
around.
know how to check your email, then you
You
can check
can
a
you can
blockchain
get onto
transaction.
exchanges and use cryptocurrency
Right.
100%. And I'm convinced of it. And like you said, I'm that one friend now that's talking to all my friends because I'm like, listen, guys, this is this is
Right.
happening. This it's not fake. It's not fake stuff.
I mean, what's going to happen when we save our friend's phone number with their wallet address in our phone? So now sending them crypto is easier because we don't have to text them and ask them their wallet address every time.
Hmm.
We think that's not going to happen in the near future. Like all these things are happening, right? Like what makes us think, well, I'm not going to have my Bitcoin address as Mohit Madaan dot BTC org or something, like, so it's easy for everybody to remember. So you don't
Right.
have to call ask me, right? Like as Bitcoin continues to grow, it's going to become easier. We have already passed the first decade, which is where only the nerds were involved, which is where it was hard, which is where it was this complicated thing. Right now, it's an app on your phone, and you click send, and it goes, right. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know how long you've been involved in, but back in the day, there were no apps. You actually downloaded a blockchain on your computer before you could do a transaction, right? Like it's just only going to get better.
Yeah, the more adoption, the better the interfaces will be. Right now, I feel like it's easy, but I've also grown up with computers and I've been
Right.
around a little bit. I don't consider myself anything, anything in terms of, if this thing shut down, I wouldn't be able to fix it. But
Right.
I understand. I understand where you're coming from and the adoptions and all of that. And I'm fascinated. I'm hooked. Um, and I'm excited too for your expansion. Just knowing you in the brief time I've known you, to know that where you're at now is just in one state, and now you're expanding to a second state. That's encouraging. That's very encouraging to
It
me.
is. Well, lucky for us, we started in California, and California is a very large state in terms of the area, in terms of population. It's the fifth largest economy in the world. You could be in California alone and be like the top 10 companies in the country.
Hmm.
So um, I look at California as not this one state, but it's in itself, it's these huge, economies that we are operating in. Our entire Ohio market will be smaller than one city of California. Like our Bay Area market will be much bigger than the entire state of, Ohio. Um,
Right.
like even when we are like fully
Just
expanding
based
in
on the
both
industry.
markets, just based on the fact that it's a larger state, it's got much higher GDP, it's got a lot more money, and it's obviously gonna more need a lot more ATMs for us to continue and grow.
That's awesome. I'm like I said, I'm very pleased that you came on the show today and gave me some information.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this: if somebody's just getting into the crypto world, or wants to do a little bit more research on their own, what are your, I don't know, your top
Yeah,
websites?
I always tell people to go to YouTube and watch bunch of videos by this one individual. His name is Andreas Anatopoulos. I always mess up his last name. He is famously named as Jesus Christ of Bitcoin. And if you watch like two videos of him, you will see why. He's very, very good at explaining this in a very selfless manner, where how you can like watch a video and tell like this person's got a heart of a teacher, where he's trying to simply educate you. So for anything as simple as what is a wallet, what is Bitcoin, what is blockchain, to as complicated as running your own node, and what's an HD wallet, he's got videos on everything. That's one tool that I think is great from beginners and advanced users. I would highly recommend everybody to check that out.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I got my homework set up
Yeah.
for me. Thank you, Mo, for coming on
Awesome.
the
Yeah.
show. Hopefully,
Oh,
we can have you
pleasure is
back
mine.
on in a few, and we can see
Yeah.
where the progress has gone, because I see bright futures for you and the company over at Biterminal. So
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Ron. It was a pleasure.
absolutely, it was always a pleasure. Always, man. You're always welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Hey
good
guys,
one.
as
Bye.
always, enjoy the journey.
So the journey has begun. If you guys listening to our content today had any kind of value, or you were moved in any way, please feel free to subscribe, pass it on, let everybody know that these two guys are the truth. They're out here just trying to do good things to make good people. Thanks.